Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sage Dragon Book Show. I'm your host, Shaquana. And I hope you all had a great Halloween. It was kind of gloomy and dreary in my neck of the woods. And I'm also sending so much love and prayers to our Caribbean families in Haiti and Cuba and Jamaica who were heavily hit. And I hope people are finding their loved ones. There are a couple of bookstagrammers I love Caribbean literature. I have read a tremendous amount of Caribbean literature over the last couple of years, and I've posted about it, but I have been following them over the course of the week, out of concern for their well-being. But they also have some trusted sources of places that people can donate if they're interested in, donating, which we all should give back to help in the rebuild. So, yeah, today's episode is a continuation of my series on activism. There's so much going on in the world. We all can play a part. And a lot of times, people don't always know where to start with giving back, with being active, being more civically minded. It's not something that's taught in schools and even colleges, depending on what major you have. So you can end up going throughout your life and not getting the skills if you weren't exposed to people who were active. And even if you were, there are great resources to learn about frameworks for activism and learn from people who are doing it in modern ways. So I have been reviewing books over the past couple of weeks that I've read. Last episode, 2 weeks ago, we talked about Protest Kitchen, which was a very impactful book on how your dietary choices can help benefit the environment. And the authors make a link between plant based and why it's a more conscientious way to live because of all of the exploitation of people, animals, and the environment for the meat and agricultural. I also covered this interesting book called Let's Move the Needle, which is really about art and activism and how artists can use their craft to move the needle and change. But what I really liked about her book was that she gives real definitions on different techniques for it. So today we're going to talk about another book, Pleasure Activism and the Politics of Feel Good. Before we get into that, I'm going to talk about our book segment, our book news segment. Hold on, having a little bit of a technical.
While
Okay, here
you
we go.
do while you're doing that, please like, share, subscribe, take a moment, comment, share the show, turn on all your notifications. So every time we have a Sage Dragon Book Club, you can jump in and chat with us. To chat with us
Thank
live,
you, Lisa.
go to streamyard.com, JAASIQDA6A. Put it in your address bar above, and I will bring you on the show, and you can chop it up with us. All right, back
Yeah.
to you.
All right, thank you. So today in our book news, I'm talking about the Reading Rainbow reboot. I don't know if you all have seen it in the news. You probably have, but just in case, I want to get the word out there because I want to encourage people who have children and youth to watch the show. So, Reading Rainbow is back. It had been taken off the air. It was like a classic show for those of us who grew up in the 70s and the 80s with the Fly theme song, and LeVar Burton hosted it. It would be all types of celebrities that would come in and read books. And then, due to funding over the years and a variety of other reasons, the show got booted. So now it's back with a new host. So it was premiered in 1983. It was widely successful. It grew to be one of the longest running and best loved children's literary series on PBS. The program reached more than 2 million viewers each week and was 26 years. It received international acclaim, and it was supported by a Ready to Learn grant from the U.S. Department of Education. So I have a clip here I want to show about the reboot. Can we show that, producer?
On the way.
All right.
Hi, and welcome to Reading Rainbow. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Michael the librarian, and this place is the library. Reading Rainbow is returning with all new episodes. Are you ready?
Yes!
That means new friends.
Hi guys, it's Riley Arnold here, and this is...
I'm Ezra Sosa.
I am 14 years old, and I'm the author of More Than Peach.
I'm here today to take a little tour and hopefully read a book to some cats.
New projects. We are going to be making some postcards, sensory bottles, sidewalk libraries.
I named mine Naya's Alice This World Library.
And of course, new books.
Narrated by me, Jamie Chung,
Gabrielle Union, Adam Devine,
John Legend,
and Chrissy Teigen.
We're so excited to start exploring the world of books together.
I would give it 2,000 stars.
In the meantime, make sure to follow the rainbow.
So I'm glad that it is back. I posted on my page. I have a whole bunch of friends who friends of friends and my little cousins. I want them all watching Reading Rainbow and stuff that is educational and entertaining. Okay, so today, when you think of activism, what comes to mind? There are tactics for activism to change the world, but how often do we consider the act of pleasure as a way to liberate, to resist, to dismantle the wrongs of the world? That's what this book is about. Pleasure activism, the politics of feeling good. I have a video. Can we show that as we introduce this interesting book and concept?
On the way.
Okay.
When we tune into ourselves, we can tell that we're wired for more than just suffering. All kinds of scholarship has gone into understanding what our bodies are wired for and how our brains work in relationship to each other. So when I talk of pleasure, I'm really talking about happiness, satisfaction, and contentment. And what does it mean to be able to experience those things in a world that has been structurally developed to deny that to the majority of people who live in it? But capitalism makes us compete to accumulate endless amounts of goods, endless amounts of money, endless amounts of excess at the expense of the earth and each other. How do we deal with living inside this economic system and still feeling satisfaction? Part of it is that we have to change our economy. The activism piece comes in here because it's really, how do we take responsibility for the world that we live in and all of the structures which are interconnected and which uphold a worldview that some of us deserve pleasure and others don't.
So that intro is the actual author of the book. And I always do an author spotlight. Andrienne Maree Brown, they is how they go by. They is a social justice healer focused on Black liberation, a writer, a facilitator, activist, gatherer of ideas, There's a doula and a podcaster. Very interesting uh, individual with so much to offer. Um, with the author spotlight, I want to take a look at their website. So, can we go to that? Because there's a lot of different books on the website that are interesting to me, in addition to pleasure activism. So, um, yeah, so if you look at their website and you click books, they have, scroll down a little bit. Yeah. So these are all the books by them: Ancestors, Loving Corrections, Maroons. Those I think are like fiction books, Fables and Spells, and Grievers, and uh, the Journal of Radical Permission. Uh, Scroll down a little bit more, and Pleasure Activism. This one was written in 2019. So one of their earlier books, and We Will Not Cancel Us, Transformative Justice and Holding Change. Now, I didn't put this together right away. And Octavia's Brew, the author, is a huge fan of Octavia Butler. So that book draws some of the lessons from Octavia Butler. And speaking of that, I want to go to another link on, on the website as well, called Lineages of Change, because I didn't realize at first when I purchased the Lineages of Change tarot deck that it was the same author that wrote this book, because I'm starting to really become familiar with their work. The That tarot is stunning. I have really, when I was reading online about it, because what it does is it pulls all of these different Black sci-fi, Afrofuturistic authors, and the wisdom that was in their work in a tarot. Isn't that really cool? And it has this really gorgeous book and the tarot cards. So I brought it earlier this year. Oh my goodness, time is just, and I am really, yeah, see, that's the description. June Jordan, Lucille Clifton, James Baldwin. It's the wisdom of Black change makers. And then they combined it with herbalists and healers. So you're getting a lot of good wisdom with each card. So more to come on that. I thought about doing a episode on some of my decks that I have. But this pleasure activism is what we're kind of talking about today. So just to give another profile of the book, it was written in 2019, and it gathers essays and interviews as a way to continue studying Audre Lorde's text, The Use of the Erotica as Power. So what is pleasure activism? I was like, okay, I need to understand this definition. It's the work we do to reclaim our whole satisfiable selves from the impact of oppression and supremacy. And it seeks to assert need that we deserve pleasure, that our social structures must reflect this, and to prioritize it. And so for more, I heard her, I was listening to a podcast as I was researching this episode and preparing for it. And I was hearing them talk with the person that interviewed them. And they were saying they don't have one definition of it, which makes sense. So if you're looking for, you just want a hardcore, what the heck does that mean? The book gets into understanding the power dynamics of everything that makes us feel good. This includes sex and erotic, drugs, fashion, humor, passion work, connection, cooking and eating, reading, music. But what it does is it's an analysis that pleasure is natural, safe, and liberated part of life, that we can offer each other tools and education to make sure that sex and desire, drugs and connection and other pleasures aren't life-threatening or harming, but life-enriching. Let's sit for a moment on that. If there's anyone listening out, I would like to hear um, what you think about that and what you think about um, pleasure and who gets to have it in our society and who doesn't, how pleasure is expressed, how we're programmed to think about it. And as I mentioned just now in reading that summary, the book goes into it really heavily delves into some areas like drug use, sex and sexuality, relationships, areas that pleasure can be. There's ways that we've been conditioned to think of. So, to get more into this description, I have a clip that I'm going to show from a very interesting conversation. It's called Disability and Pleasure Activism. And I wanted to show this clip because I think it's an example of what the book is talking about. As we're working to change and transform against the isms in the world, we don't have to be so darn miserable. That's to me the most simplest way of describing pleasure activism. We don't have to be as miserable in trying to make life better for ourselves and our family. And we don't have to spread misery to others. So, can we
Are
show
you
this?
satisfiable?
There it is. It looks like, is that Frozen?
Intensive care mode for a friend's crisis. So I haven't really used my brain like in a conversation outside of like, how do we manage this hospital and how do we manage the baby, that kind of thing. So I'm really excited, Claudia, because I'm like, who knows what's going to happen today? It's a very raw, uncut brain that I've got right now. So here we are. My access needs are all met.
Adrienne Maree Brown, raw and uncut. I'm excited for this conversation. Our goals for this conversation are to have a pleasurable exchange, to touch upon what it means to be disabled and look at pleasure activism through a disabled justice lens, and to just have a fabulous conversation. I must let you know that I belong to this really beautiful group called, well, they've been holding these sessions that they're calling Crip Create. And they're these decolonized, I don't want to call them work sessions because you don't have to work or labor inside of them. You can just show up and be. You come in, you're going to say, my goal in our time together is to feel relaxed in my body. I might roll around on the floor while we're doing this. And then you can come and say, my goal is to have this spreadsheet complete when we leave this space. I shared with them I was going to be chatting with you.
Yeah.
And we had such a good time. I said to everyone, how about y'all just join me? I'll have a breakout session and you can flow in and out of your work as you will feel you like. We spent 2 hours talking about pleasure activism.
Pleasure. That makes me so happy. I really love, for me, anything I write is out of a conversation that I'm like having in my head and then having with my loved ones. And I try to make the books feel like that. Like, can we just be in conversation about these things? And then when I hear that that's actually happening, that like people I have never met and I don't know are also catalyzed into like talking about my favorite things, sci-fi, pleasure as activism, pleasure as a liberation tool, being in contact with nature, which also is teaching us all the time about pleasure and moving towards life and moving as we are towards life. So that makes me happy.
While we were having that conversation, one person had a fun background and another person manifested a fun background. And then that became a piece of the pleasure we were having. So we had really highly intellectual exchange as well as deep vulnerability, telling stories while laughing and changing our backgrounds. So I hope that you will welcome me, maybe playing with my backgrounds a little bit as we chat.
I'm jealous because so everybody seems to have, I'm like, you are a Uhuru to me and I see it in you and I honor the Uhuru in you. And I think that she would have had a Black Lives Matter sign on the desk, you know, she would have, oh, we're in the hologram. So yeah. And also like Star Trek hard. I Star Trek hard. So I saw that not only did you have the hologram, but I saw your mug. I peeped it.
Oh, yes.
Like, I'm there. I just finished Discovery season 3. So I'm just like, yes, I'm with you. I think it's some of the best, most interesting television. So, but yeah, I can't, on my little computer, I can't figure out how to do backgrounds. I guess I need to buy a green screen or something. So I'm not elevated. Like that's not a real cat behind you. That's a background.
That is totally a background, but you figured out in the last 10 minutes how to have a sprout coming right out of your head. It's beautiful.
You know, Auntie still got it, honey. I can do this. I need the next level. I think it's my computer. I blame my computer, not myself, obviously.
Yeah. So I think why I showed that, I purposely showed that whole introductory conversation because I really liked how they introduced a topic. I'm going to show a little bit more of a clip that gets more into the meat of it. But look how they brought the fun into it, you know, and they showed genuine, first of all, joy for seeing each other. Have you ever been in situations where you show up in an environment where it's supposed to be like, let's say you're planning something with activists, you may be in a non-for-profit setting, you might even be within your family getting ready to plan a family reunion or something, and everyone is just like mean mugging each other, and there's just this energy and aura of misery. It doesn't help with getting people energized to do the work that needs to happen. So if you bring some more of, you allow people to kind of be more joyful, you spark it, or you try to figure out how to make it more interesting, I think it can lighten the load that we're carrying. Any people out there got comments about that? We're gonna delve more into this pleasure conversation. Janelle from IG says New York City police tried to kill our activism this summer by finding or arresting those who barbecue on the streets of New York. Kills the Block Party vibe. Thank you, Janelle. Hey, Janelle. That's exactly what this book is talking about. It's saying how we're so policed in our bodies, how like state sanctioned violence and capitalism, all these systems rob us of our pleasure, but then they'll try to package it back and sell it to you and make you feel like if you take a vacation at a extraordinary place, I'm not hating on vacations now, but they make you feel like everything has to be so packaged and sold. And we have some really organic ways of experiencing pleasure that and being able to like live that way and show our children that doesn't always require spending tons and tons of money. The way we play our cards, like you said, barbecuing, playing some music. And I want to really hear how people are experiencing pleasure, even right now in this terrifying time that we're in. Can we show the second clip of this disability and pleasure activism?
I have to cue it. Just give me a second.
Okay. All right. So anybody out there with further comments, please keep it coming on the pleasure activism. I will talk while you're queuing that. I'll get into some more of the themes of the book. The book is divided into 6 sections: sex, drug use, the politics of wholeness and movement, harm reduction, And it's a combination of the author talking about their life and their, their journey. They also pull in conversations with scholars, activists. They have essays in here. They have poems in here. They have the very beginning of it, the introduction. The author says they dedicate this book to Alana Deval, who they loved and learned during the journey of creation and pleasure. Researching this book, she said, "Drink in beauty. Pleasure is a practice. Practice pleasure like your life depends on it." And then the author also includes a quote from Purple Rain Prince, where he said, "I only wanted one time to see you laughing." And, the different sections, the very first section, there's a question: who taught you to feel good? And I spent, sometimes when I read books, I go down rabbit holes and I really reflect on them and I meditate. So there was a question in the early part where the author was asking this prompt of who taught you to feel good. And they actually asked as homework, this is really cool. They said, write up your pleasure activism lineage. Who awakened your senses? Who politicized your experiences of body, identity, sensation, and feeling good? And if they're still living, have you thanked them? And if yes, good. And if not, reach out. And if they're an ancestor, honor them. Gratitude is pleasure too. And I thought about people that in my early stages helped exhibit that. Looks like we've got the video ready.
They're not myself, obviously.
So I like to have a free-flowing conversation, but I thought we might start off with rooting ourselves for those who are joining who possibly haven't fully read the book, or possibly just are hoping to have a better definition or rooting into what pleasure activism can mean. I'm not a big fan of there being one definition, but I'd love for us to talk about what it can hold.
So I have a copy of the book here, and I'm laughing at you saying that, not a fan of one definition, because I think that there's 6 definitions on the page. Right? So it's on page 13 of the book. And it talks about pleasure as a feeling of happiness, satisfaction, and enjoyment. And activism is those things we do to promote, impede, or direct social, political, and economic and environmental change. So pleasure activism is like, how do we bring those together at a fundamental level? And I always got very interested because when I say pleasure activism, people, they're always like, sex dungeon, right? And I'm like, if that's your thing, then yes, that's your thing. But it actually is much more about, are you satisfiable? And the activism piece comes in for me where I'm like, we are among the freest Black people that ever lived, the freest people that ever lived of whatever our lineages are. And a lot has been done to take away our sense that we deserve pleasure, that we are, it's a no matter what body we are in, that it is our right to have access to it, and that we should be taught, that we should be in conversation, that it should be available to all of us to be in a pleasurable space. So I talk about pleasure activism as the work we do to reclaim our power and our access to the pleasure that's already in us, that's inherent in us. It's not, oh, I need to go out and someone needs to teach me to pole dance, or I need someone to tell me how to write a poem. It's really like, what gives me satisfaction? What makes me happy? When do I know I'm content? And then what are the political implications of marginalized and oppressed people being content? How does that require all of society to change around us, right? I've been doing a lot of work lately with claiming pleasures and sending them back along my lineage. So thinking like, what are the pleasures that Octavia Butler may not have had access to, or Harriet Tubman may not have had access to, who are 2 of our Black disabled prophet goddesses, right? Like, what are the things that we can pass back along the line to their bodies, to my grandmother's body, that I can feel in the present moment? That also feels like part of my activism. So
I
just
love that that is something that you do. It's something that I do as well.
yes.
As I was
Yeah, so now you understand. I think because I was trying to also paraphrase it, but I think that that combination of discussion shows what the author means by pleasure activism. And when she was just talking about, when they were just talking about the experience of, think honoring Harriet Tubman and Octavia Butler, who both had disabilities, and yet they were able to push through those and live these purposeful lives. Um, and we have this freedom now. I was just thinking about how the other day I was on a walk this week, and there was a white couple walking down the street with two dogs. And it was a beautiful day. I was getting my steps in, and they stepped aside as I was getting closer, and they totally paved the way for me to walk. And I was able to just walk past them. I think I made contact with them because I miss my doggy. So whenever I see people with dogs and they seem to be pleasant, I'll make eye contact with them, or I'll make eye contact with like them and the dog sometimes, depending on how the aura feels. But anyway, I was able to walk past them, but they made way for me. And then I just started thinking about how 30 and 40 and 50 years ago, a Black woman just walking down the street on a sidewalk, there were times where our people lawfully had to step aside and let them walk. Dogs were being sicked on them. So it wasn't about us just enjoying a dog and being able to like smile at the dog. The dog could have been, yeah, rest in peace, Trigger and Bella. The dog could have been harming you. And that's what made me, in that moment, just give thanks to the progress we made, that I have this freedom to walk in my neighborhood, and that white people step aside. There's times when I cross the street, if I see them walking, but they stepped aside from me and allowed me to walk past. And they were gracious and humane about that. But there was a time when our people didn't even have that. They had to, be disrespected. So I really resonated with what the author just was saying about um, us having the freedom, while also acknowledging what you just said, Janelle, about what's happening right now as the police state in the country is growing, how that is impacting us. So some of the considerations that really, really resonated with me in this book: the impact of growing up in anti-pleasure eras. I will say that those of us who grew up in like the late 70s and early 80s, part of why I was really like, wow, as I was reading this book and I was sharing this in a note to a friend, is I grew up in a very anti-pleasure era, if you think about it, because you look at certain time periods. The 70s, it was like free love, free flowing love. There was the pleasure of, even in the 60s, although there was massive, like I just said, the lynchings and Jim Crow. But if you think about like the Black Power movement, there was a pleasure that you had in yourself, like just self, being able to just look at yourself in the mirror and wear an afro and not a lot of makeup. Then there was the 70s, where there was pleasure, there was the drugs and the era of that, and sex. When you got to the 80s, by the time we were growing up, the messages were sex will kill you. I mean, it was heavily religious, but it was also HIV and AIDS scared the bejesus out of us. So a lot of us were kind of conditioned. I was just remembering this conversation that I had. I went to an all girls Catholic school, and I had a friend who told me, my grandmother said, if you lay, you pay. And that was the message. So it was like, and there was a lot of teenage pregnancy going on, and they were trying to curb it. So the message was, if you have sex, it's going to cause you to have these unwanted pregnancies. It may cause you to have disease and death. That was very different than the 70s. There was a very heavy anti-drug, anti just say no, like it was in the music. And I talked about that in Crack is King. It was also don't go outside, you're going to be snatched up. It was really very strongly, and it was couched in protection. It's going to protect us, it's going to keep us safe. But you also have to just think about how those messages impact you and what you think about joy and pleasure. And that's part of why I'm not dictating what how any of us should feel about those things, but I do think that us Gen Xers, especially who grew up during that time, were kind of got the heavy on us about and stay away from that, stay away from that, stay away from that, stay away from that, and the effort of being safe. So, kind of that's what this book drummed up for me, and how I'm exploring that in my life. How our early exposures shape our behaviors is also talked about. The relationship between repressing pleasure and desire to feel good and the addictions and perversions. And I really appreciate even what the author said in that clip that we just showed. If people are not getting pleasure, which is a human need, there and it's repressed really, really strongly, what tends to happen is people start getting kind of perverted, and either they go to the other extreme from the repression, or they start to develop a lot of addictions in our society. And we have a very addicted society. It's all sorts of addictions and it's all sorts of perversions. The author is suggesting that if we start to reframe how we look at pleasure in certain areas of life, perhaps we won't have to go there and be so addicted. There's a lot in here that talks about like porn and how strongly that started to spread, and it's still very prominent. And there's now evidence showing how damaging it is for people to even be able to enjoy healthy sex, because the porn has like given people this real unhealthy way of unrealistic way of thinking about bodies and pleasure. So it gets into all of that, how healthy infusions of pleasure can improve the well being of people, families, communities, and societies. Like if we realize that, people deserve joy regardless of their socioeconomic status. I mean, think about it. The food stamp was getting ready to be cut off. And there were all of this debating and of if people, I've seen so many videos about people advocating for it. I've seen just as many videos about people saying that this is a good thing. People just need to get a job and work. So it really was showing me how much people tie what people deserve to money and success. So if you have money and success and access, you're deserving of a better life. You're deserving of joy. You deserve to eat. You deserve to get your health care. You deserve to be able to be happy. When poorer people want to get some joy, or marginalized people or disabled people, they're policed. Why is that? how messaging that certain people deserve pleasure and others don't impact our current misery. And that's part of what I had just talked about. And then another consideration that the book shows is how embracing misery as a proxy for change work can backfire. And these are all my language. These are not language of the author. These are my what I extracted out if I'm trying to do a review and encourage people to read the book. These are the things that the book helps your mind spark. And as I've heard the author say this, I think this is an interesting book to discuss and have it be at maybe like book clubs. The other thing is I have been in the non for profit. Most of the jobs that I've had have had non for profit statuses. They tend to be the more on the more privileged, wealthier side of non for profits. Because like I worked at a large university health system. I'm now in a managed care health plan. So, but they still have that label. But I've also seen in more grassroots type of non for profits, and not just that, just individuals. It can be this thing where people um, become they become like struggle Olympians. It's like who struggles more, who's more miserable, who has more and you link it to like the credibility, and or if you martyred yourself enough, if you've suffered enough, that gets becomes a badge of honor, and people who are leading these efforts are rewarded and awarded for that. And I wondered how that has how healthy that is, because I've personally seen some people who have been leaders, and the martyring that they are doing, it ends up taking a toll on them, their relationships, their health, and their overall satisfaction in life. So that was something that I also took away, which is why I think that I would suggest organizations, community type of like activist groups, maybe bring this author in or others like them to work with them and helping them think about how they can like make their organizations more embracing of pleasure for all the people there. What you sometimes see happen is like maybe the person who's the leader become like the rock star of the organization. They get invited to the boards and all the luncheons, the dinners, and they get the awards. And sometimes there's resentment that happens amongst the other staff. Nobody's getting rich doing this work, so there's you're not getting the funds. So the pleasure comes from that innate sense of change, but it also comes from like the social currency that you pick up from doing this type of work, but it's not always evenly distributed in the organizations. So there's a lot of things that I think I got out of this that I could see benefiting people who do change work. I'm going to stop there. Any comments? I didn't want to forget my thoughts on there. Janelle, Carnival cruisers set new rules just for Black people on the cruise. No line dancing on deck, no smoking, rap music, and curfews. Not giving them my money. Neither would I. I don't even understand why we would even go on those anymore. I mean, that's unacceptable. If
I want to jump in real quick,
yeah,
and mention something. There's this new thing going around called Black fatigue, and it aligns with your pleasure activism piece. And there's a trend going around where those who have the control over certain industries, they want to eliminate all things that look like Black cultural joy.
Yeah.
They want to take those things and if it's added to the American tapestry, they want to yank it away and make it like it's woke, or make it like it's something to that takes away from the balance of the overall American experience, when really it adds to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I just want people to be vigilant and aware of that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll, like you said, they'll crouch it in criminality, or they'll crouch it in eco activism, or they'll crouch it in some Hegelian dialectic that sounds righteous and sounds good, but they're gonna make some movement for change, when really it's just eliminating the things that Black people have contributed to joy and entertainment within the country landscape
Yeah.
for their own purposes. Just wanted to put that out there.
No, thank you for that. And I've seen that, and I've seen that terminology, Black fatigue, and I see how it is happening. And then, it's interesting because the last several Super Bowls, the entertainment is Black or brown. It was Kendrick last year. It's Bad Bunny for 2026. I can't turn on a television and all the ads are like 80s, 90s hip hop. So a lot of those artists that didn't have their masters, who might be up getting ready to get their masters, or maybe they got them, or don't have them, their records are being used to produce and promote, actually not produce, but to promote and sell products. And hopefully it's benefiting the people who created that. So on the one hand, they're wiping away and they're trying to remove our Black joy. But on the other hand, they're making tons of money by selling it and using our art and our culture to sell these products and services. So we have the right to not engage and to engage. And that's part of activism too. How do we use our, the boycotting, or protesting, or showing up at town hall meetings, or coming up with other strategies? How do we use those more strategically to push back, because they are using our art to sell? I mean, Super Bowl is huge. um, we've got an image of pleasure activism. There's a quote on page 63 of the book that I thought okay, so this says build communities of care. Shift from individual transactions for self care to collective transformation. Be in community with healers in our lives. Healers, we must make sure our gifts are available and accessible to those growing and changing our community. Be in family with each other. Offer the love and care we can. Share your car or meals with a healer in exchange for Reiki sessions. Facilitate a healing group in exchange for massages. Clean a healer's home as barter for a ritual to move through grief. Pay healing forward, buy sessions for friends. Let our lives be a practice ground where we're learning to generate the abundance of love and care we as a species are longing for. So, what I liked about that is the book, it gives, poems and essays and personal accounts. But then there's also like real tangible ways that we can think about in each of our lives how we spread pleasure and how we get into activism, which is the whole point of this series I'm doing. I want us all to be more active, and we don't all have to do the same form of activism, work on the same causes, but there's a need. There's food, there's education, there's economics, there's safety and policing. There's environmental issues that impact our marginalized communities more.
Uh-oh.
Pick a cause.
Uh-oh, you got a comment.
And pick a active piece. Thank you. You're beautiful. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. So getting back to, can we show that image?
Sure. Now, this is an image of something that used to go on in the 60s and the 70s, and they brought it back. My homegirl Lala kind of put me onto it, and I'm going to share it right now. Here we go. Rent parties.
Mm-hmm.
So they took the whole house party theme, and they had 3 parties in one building to help friends and whomever the project was meant for to raise money for their rent. And that was their form of activism versus, I guess, like, prices, rent prices going up and
Mm-hmm.
mortgage prices going up and people not being able to buy homes or afford apartments because of credit and this and that. So they
Yeah.
had a rent party in a building, and they had 3 parties in one building. Shout out to them.
Shout out to them. And more, I think that that is a great thing that communities can bring back to, because look at, we've got to push back against this mass capitalism. And the reason why, I read an article about the rent parties a couple of months ago, and the reason why things like that were more popular in the 20s, when during the Great Depression, was there wasn't as much shame around money as there is now. Like I said, I'm seeing so much shaming of people that are poor or even middle class, or if you're not a billionaire, which is hilarious. Like being a billionaire is something to aspire to. No. Yeah, so there's a lot of shaming going on. We need to release the shame. And perhaps if we start to really get into, getting back to my quote unquote, my day job, I was just listening to the there was a deep dive that the government affairs people did about that OMBB bill. And they were talking about how essentially it's a tax bill as its core. And really, the bill is taking the whole GDP, America's budget, and taking a huge chunk out of the healthcare money to pay for the tax credits so that they can continue to benefit um, the wealthy and business class. So that's what it is funding. So if you understand how the economy is working, I think it would be really kind of ridiculous for us to continue to shame poor people. If you understand how these buildings and housing, how um, unethical things have gotten, even with rents and mortgages. And some of that was exposed back around 2008 with the first big mortgage crisis. You would see that. But people, let's remove the shame that's tied to money, and also the false sense of, who has more than others, because a lot of that can change. A lot of, you're too, I have friends that are furloughed right now, and I feel for them. And not only, I don't want to just feel, I want to do something about it. So if we need to bring back things to push back about it, push back against it, we should. And we can have some fun at the same time, which is pleasure activism. And I also think we go a step further. We try to figure out how we push up against these. But unfortunately, I'm seeing people that look like us that want to uphold the policies that are causing these economic disparities. Not everybody even thinks that it's wrong. And I think that's part of what we want to get educated about. Samini, hey Ma, she said that there's so much shaming about money. I believe it's because of the way many people are brought up, just how much you're making, depending on your educational level. And the shame, it started back in the 80s. If you could keep talking about that, it started in the 80s and the 90s with shaming your education, what college you went to, what you're making. If you're not making a certain amount, you can't be a part of these groups. So the shame has started a long time ago. Thanks, Ma. That's true. Yeah, even back with, certain groups, like it probably was even going on as far as like the 40s and the 50s, because even with certain organizations and, Black secret societies and things like that. A lot of it was built into class, but there was always um, there was always a lifestyles of the rich and famous. It was always there, but it just grew into this expectation that's unrealistic and it's soulless. Keep the comments coming. Appreciate it. So there was also, as I was doing research for this book, I came across an essay called
Oh, did you want to play that collective activism video?
Collective Activism. Yes.
You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
You don't want to save me. Sad is my song. Come on, Daddy. Come on.
I saw that the other day online and I was like, that is so great. I commented on the video and um, the gentleman, his name is Khalid Mentor. He is an soulful entity, he goes by Khalid Mentor on Instagram, LA living, but he went into a nursing home and just brought so much joy to those people. Did you see the guy in the wheelchair? And he was like he was really doing it. And when my children were younger, I was part of Jack and Jill. And every year in December, the first week of December, they probably still do it in the Rochester chapter. We go to Plymouth Gardens, we go to a nursing home and bring the kids in. They would sing songs, holiday songs. We would bring them toil trees. They loved it. They would love it. Their faces would light up. And over the years, at first, you know how it is with kids. You bring them at first, they're like, do I got to get up? It's a Saturday. Yes, get up, get dressed, get the crust out your eyes, wash your face, brush your teeth, put some nice clothes on. And a couple of years, I remember the first year we were late because I was wrangling 3 kids. But then over time, they're like, "Mom, we going to Plymouth Gardens? Yeah, we going to Plymouth Gardens." And it just became something we looked forward to. And the whole weekend, it was an experience because the Friday night we would gather at one of the mothers' houses. She would bake brownies, and they would practice their songs. They would sing like holiday songs and stuff the bags. And then Saturday we would go to Plymouth Gardens and bring the gifts and the tall trees, and then Sunday we would have like a holiday party. So we're doing activism, but we're also enjoying ourselves. So that was pleasure activism. Anybody have any examples they want to share of how they combine pleasure and activism? I would love to hear it. Okay. Yeah, so I came across this article, Centering Pleasure in Your Activism. as I was doing research, and you can find that from if you type that centering pleasure in your activism in, it's Charlene Gandhi, and the image is Lucy Pini. And it was just a really good article about how to incorporate pleasure into your activism. The other thing that the author talked a good deal about, and this is a new concept to me, is somatic healing. And the author is a somatic, and somatic healing, I didn't really know about this form of healing, but it's a treatment focusing on the body and how emotions appear within the body. And Baker explains somatic therapy um, posits that our body holds and expresses experiences and emotions in traumatic events, or unresolved emotional issues can become trapped inside the body. So they're saying that this is a new a growing area of healing, and in non-traditional spaces, but even in Western traditional medicine, they're embracing it. Like this article here that I read it on was in Harvard Health. But this is a huge theme in the book. The author talks a lot about how somatics has been important in their ability to experience pleasure. And that's what led me to wanting to learn more about it. And the site that I went on was Somatic Interventions for BIPOC Clients Navigating Trauma and Anxiety. It can help with PTSD, complicated grief can get trapped in our bodies, depression, anxiety, trust and intimacy issues, and self esteem problems. Has anyone heard of somatic healing? Yeah. So that I think that's can be something that more people can look to getting um, as another form of healing, because one of the I've heard some people, I don't want to just say critique, just talk therapy, but what there's, I heard a healer and a healer professional say that it's not enough. So just doing talk therapy, if you can combine talk therapy with something like somatics, that it's more holistic, because we tend to rely heavily on just talking and taking medicine. This is talking, taking medicine, and also having that physical movement, that touch, that's also allowing a person to heal from traumas and different issues that they're dealing with.
Ask your mom if she ask Sharon if she wants to be live on the stage with you, because she's kind of going in and out. I can bring her up if she wants to say something.
Would you like to come up on the show, Ma?
Your audio is live. You can say something if you like.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. This has been very interesting for me because there's so much so much information that you did give me. And one of the things that I do want to share is that it doesn't matter how old you are, it takes time. Sometimes it takes time for you to become part of that healing process for yourself so that you can give back to the community. And it doesn't, for me, it took me a long time to get to the place that I'm at. And I am so full of gratitude because I am part of a community that um help one another. We go out and we talk about what it is that kept us and keep us in a place where addiction comes in all types of forms. You touched on that in the beginning of talking about the book, and it comes in so many different forms. And then until you start doing the work on yourself, and once you start doing the work on yourself, you can help the community. You can advocate for your belief in what it is that our community needs. And our community needs a whole lot of healing. So this has been a good segment for me because I'm hearing so much and I'm getting so much information from this segment. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate that you're bringing these topics up because it's very important for people to hear this, and especially in our community. Period. And how do we help? By our experience, strength, and hope on how we got through whatever it is that we get through, and we go out and we tell our community that we are there for them, regardless to what, and we work hard. I did that last night. I'm doing that today. I'm going to do some work today. I'm getting myself ready, and this is why I don't have my audio on. I don't want y'all to see me. But I believe in this because it's keeping me healthy. And if you sit around and you don't take care of yourself, you're going to feel those depression moments. You're going to feel those moments of anxiety because maybe your finances isn't where you want it to be, or your credit isn't where you want it to be, or your education isn't where you want it to be. There's so many in our community that are like that. We suffer from low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self, I just was talking to somebody today and they asked me, are you feeling inferior? Because I was like, I don't know if I want to go do this. And they asked me that question, are you feeling inferior? And I'm like, wow. I didn't even think of it like that. Because I'm going to be around a group of people that are educated, that are this and that, but they invited me. So I must have something to give. So that's where I'm at today. So again, I thank you for this segment, and I'm grateful that I took the time to come on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And you have a lot to give, Ma. You have so many positive attributes, and you're right. That's why they invited you. And would you like to share something pleasurable that you experienced this week?
Oh my goodness. I had so much fun over the weekend that passed. And I had so much fun this week. Just pleasurable. Just going out and yesterday, everybody know it was Halloween. And the kids in this area also know that I always put a big old bowl of candy. I'm the candy lady. They come knock on my door. Miss, do you have any candy? Right. So yesterday I was like, so day before yesterday, girl said, are you gonna? I said, of course. And she said, how much? I said, you're not going to pay for this candy. So I had a big old bowl of candy out there yesterday. They didn't even have to knock on the door with some Gatorade so they could stay hydrated, with some apples so that they can know that you need to eat healthy a little bit. Because the thing about Halloween, when we were growing up, we just wanted the candy. We didn't want nothing healthy. But I said, I'm going to throw some apples out here, some Gatorade, because, whatever. And they took it all. And I was I still got a bowl of candy, but yeah, I was so grateful for that, and pleasurable, just me getting out, walking every single day, knowing that it's going to be all right, regardless to how I may feel at that moment, knowing that it's going to be all right. So, yeah, try to take a positive.
Great.
I try to keep a positive thing.
We got an alert. We got a comment. Here we go.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Ma, for sharing.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay.
Decent stream. Love the content. Good topic. I'm a natural. Keep up the great work. Blessings. Thank you. Free 33 Mula. Thank you. Thank you for it. I really appreciate if anyone out there who knows people that might read them, like books. The way that I do it is I discuss the books. There's bookstagrammers, right? And I'm not really a bookstagrammer. My twist is I take the book and I try to make it into a discussion so that I review it. But even if you haven't read the book, I still would like to take it and bring it into a conversation digitally. So it takes actually more time for me to do that than just a 3 or 4 minute review, because I research and I pull interactive questions. So I hope you all are appreciating that. because like I said, I'm reading these books, which takes time. I read physical books mostly, but I also love audio and ebooks. So I do it all. And then I try to turn it into a discussion so we can spread books and literacy, which we need more. I just saw a clip recently online, and it was kind of disturbing because they were talking about how like reading is down, and how in times of humanity, that's how the dark ages started, when people weren't reading as much and they were just taking mass information from mass media, from a small group of people that were helping to shape the minds of so many. And I was like, oh, and they were comparing it to our time. So I'm going to continue to have my pleasure activism, which is going to be reading vastly, spreading it, promoting other people to read. I read for pleasure. I read fiction and nonfiction. And I just want literacy to continue to be a strong force in our society. So, lastly, I think, I asked this of my mom, and I'm glad that she's shared. But anyone out there, share what brings you pleasure? That's one question. Another one, if you don't want to answer that one, is how can you add pleasure to the world? And another one is, what is one thing society can do to prevent impeding on the pleasure of others? Anybody out there want to share? What can we do? What can each of us do to not gatekeep pleasure from other people? Any bubbles bubbling up, producer?
Yeah, actually, yes. So
Okay. All
give it a
right.
moment. Keep it
Okay.
going.
I will. I'll share.
I'll
I
fill them
have
up
a
as we go.
Okay, I have a friend, Nicole, and I'm gonna send this in her. I don't think she's listening to this, but I'm gonna send this text to her. I saw her. She was at with a friend, and they were. It was her friend's birthday, and they must have gone out, and they were doing karaoke, and she was singing Shaka Khan, you know, and I was just so happy to see her enjoying herself. And then it took me back to a memory from us when we were like little girls going to we were in elementary school, and the school gave us Mets tickets to go to see a Mets game. And it must have been I think it might have been her people that took us. But the memory that I have is us in Shea Stadium. It was a warm, sunny day, and we were playing. After the Mets game, we were walking, rapping, because we're the Get Fresh crew. I want this to be special, something more. And she was playing the tape deck, and we were just, man, see that memory? That memory just gave me so much. Janelle from IG, she says she cooks and bakes to combat hunger and gives the food away. Ooh, power to you. Power to you. Everyone likes sweets, and it brings people together. Exactly. You're bringing sweetness, and you're bringing people together, and that is so needed. I was so worried about the food stamps being shut off, because I do not, hunger is something. Back when I was like 7, 8 years old in the 80s, it was the whole We Are the World thing. Y'all remember that? World hunger was a problem. And I remember, like, even then, I was worried about it. I didn't like it. And I still don't. I don't like to know that anyone is going hungry. I mean, all of us have had to miss a meal. But there's a difference between that and what's happening, because food is so expensive. And I've done a lot of work with our local food link, food access organization, and I was listening to Mitch Gruber, he's a city councilman, and he's also a leader at Food Link. And so the other day they had a press conference before they thought that the food stamps weren't going to be, SNAP wasn't going to be offered. And he said that even with the food banks and the increases that have happened in donations, there is not, they can't fill that gap. There's 42 million people that depend on SNAP. It cannot be filled by food banks. So it put things into perspective of how much food access is a problem, and more to come there. We'll continue to talk about that. But if there's no more comments, I'm going to let you all go and hope that you have a day of pleasure. And then you also think about what activism you can get involved in, and then how you're going to continue to merge those worlds together. And I'll see you all next week, and we'll keep talking books.